Welcome dear friends, in this video we will discuss important MCQs based on the 27th Amendment to the Constitution of Pakistan in such a way कि MCQs के साथ साथ आपको 27वें तरमीम भी पूरी तरह से समझ आ सके. What is the short title of the 27th Amendment Bill to the Constitution of Pakistan? Constitution 27th Amendment Act 2025. When does the Constitution 27th Amendment Act 2025 come into force according to its text? At once. On which date was the Constitution 27th Amendment Bill 2025 introduced in the Senate of Pakistan? 8th November 2025. In which House of the Parliament was the Constitution 27th Amendment Bill 2025 first introduced? Senate of Pakistan. The primary institutional innovation proposed by the 27th Amendment is the creation of which court? Federal Constitutional Court. According to the statement of objects and reasons, which issue mainly prompted the proposal for a federal constitutional court? Increasing number of constitutional petitions in the Supreme Court. The 27th Amendment intends the Federal Constitutional Court to handle which type of matters primarily? Specialized adjudication of constitutional matters. One objective of creating the Federal Constitutional Court is to enable the Supreme Court to focus mainly on which function? Appellate jurisdiction. Which constitutional article relating to the armed forces is specifically targeted for administrative amendments by the 27th Amendment? Article 243. Who is mentioned as Minister in charge in the Statement of Objects and Reasons of the 27th Amendment Bill 2025? आजम नज़ीर तारड़, जो कि पाकिस्तान के लॉ मिनिस्टर हैं. Under the amendment of Article 42, the word Pakistan in the article is to be substituted with which expansion? The Federal Constitutional Court. The new explanation added to Article 59 fixes the expiry of a senator's term on which date of the relevant year? 11th March. According to the explanation to Article 59 as amended, the term of a member of the Senate expires on a fixed date regardless of which factor? The date of his election. By amendment of Clause 5 of Article 63A, references relating to defection are to be sent to which court instead of the Supreme Court? Federal Constitutional Court. After amendment, Article 68 prohibits parliamentary discussion on the conduct of which additional courts judges? Federal Constitutional Court. Article 72(2)(b) is amended to require consultation with which court regarding certain matters relating to the Federal Consolidated Fund? Federal Constitutional Court. Article 81 is amended so that certain charged expenditures relate to which additional court? Federal Constitutional Court. Under the amended Article 93(1), what is the new maximum number of special assistants or advisors to the Prime Minister? 7. Under the amendment of Article 101, the Attorney General for Pakistan must now be qualified to be a judge of which court? Federal Constitutional Court. Article 136 is amended so that the maximum number of provincial ministers is increased from 15 to which number? 17. Under the amended Article 136, the minimum number of provincial ministers is increased from 11 to which number? 13. Under Article 130(11), as amended, the maximum number of advisors to a chief minister becomes 7. By amendments to Article 165A, which new court's property and income is expressly mentioned in connection with certain tax matters. Federal Constitutional Court. The amendment of Article 175(1) provides that there shall be which additional superior court in Pakistan? Federal Constitutional Court of Pakistan. The 27th Amendment inserts which new chapter in Part 7 of the Constitution? Chapter 1A, the Federal Constitutional Court. Which new article specifically constitutes the Federal Constitutional Court? Article 175B. Under Article 175B(1), who determines the number of judges of the Federal Constitutional Court? Act of Parliament, or until so determined, the President. The proviso to Article 175B(1) states that the Federal Constitutional Court may have what feature regarding its judges? Equal number of judges from each province. Under Article 175B(2), who may make provisions for matters consequential or ancillary to the establishment of the Federal Constitutional Court? President by order. Which article deals with the appointment of judges of the Federal Constitutional Court? Article 175C. According to Article 175C(1), judges of the Federal Constitutional Court are appointed by the President in accordance with which article? Article 175A. Which of the following is not a qualification for appointment as judge of the Federal Constitutional Court under Article 175C(2)? Serving Federal Secretary, while the remaining are qualifications, which are Judge of the Supreme Court, 7 years service as a High Court Judge and 20 years as an Advocate of High Court and Advocate of Supreme Court. Article 175C(3) provides that a judge of the Supreme Court appointed to the Federal Constitutional Court retains what among the FCC judges other than the Chief Justice? Inter se seniority. Under Article 175D, before entering office, the Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court makes oath before whom? President. Under Article 175D, judges of the Federal Constitutional Court other than the Chief Justice make their oath before whom? Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court. Article 175E(1) gives the Federal Constitutional Court original jurisdiction in which type of disputes? Disputes between any two or more governments. In Article 175E explanation, the term governments means which governments? Federal government and provincial governments. Under Article 175E(2), what type of judgments does the Federal Constitutional Court pronounce in disputes between governments? Declaratory judgments only. Under Article 175E(3), the Federal Constitutional Court may make orders of the nature mentioned in Article 199 in relation to what? Enforcement of fundamental rights involving a question of public importance. What condition is attached in Article 175(e)(3) for exercise of jurisdiction regarding enforcement of fundamental rights? Filling of an appropriate application by a person. Under which Article 175(e)(4) petitions and related appeals pending before which court are to be transferred to the Federal Constitutional Court, Supreme Court and its constitutional benches. Article 175(e)(5) empowers the Federal Constitutional Court to call for the record of any case pending before any court if the case involves what? Substantial question of law as to interpretation of the Constitution. Which article lays down the appellate jurisdiction of the Federal Constitutional Court? Article 175(f). Under Article 175(f)(1)(a), appeals may lie to the Federal Constitutional Court where what condition exists? Act of Parliament so provides. Under Article 175(f)(1)(b), the High Court must certify that the case involves what kind of question for an appeal to lie to the Federal Constitutional Court? Substantial question of law as to the interpretation of the Constitution. Under Article 175(f)(1)(c), appeals from judgments under Article 199 which lie to the Federal Constitutional Court only if what happens? Federal Constitutional Court grants leave to appeal. Under the proviso to Article 175(f)(1)(c), no appeal lies to the Federal Constitutional Court from High Court judgments under Article 199 in which matters? Family and rent matters. Article 175(f)(2) provides that relevant petitions, appeals or review applications pending before which court before commencement of the amendment shall stand transferred to the Federal Constitutional Court, Supreme Court. Article 175(g) grants the Federal Constitutional Court which power? To review its own judgments or orders. Article 175(h) provides the advisory jurisdiction of the Federal Constitutional Court when which authority refers a question of law of public importance. President. Under Article 175(h)(2), what must be the Federal Constitutional Court do with a question referred to it by the President? Report its opinion to the President. Under Article 175(i), up to what age does a judge of the Federal Constitutional Court hold office? 68 years. According to the first proviso to the Article 175(i), what is the term of office of the Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court? 3 years or until age 68, whichever is earlier. The second proviso to Article 175(i) states that on completion of his 3-year term, the Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court shall stand retired notwithstanding age of superannuation. मतलब वो इस चीज़ का इंतज़ार फिर नहीं करेगा कि उसके 68 ईयर्स का जो लिमिट है वो पूरा हो जाएगा, बल्कि जब बीइंग अ चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ द फेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल कोर्ट उसके 3 साल पूरे हो जाएंगे तो उसको रिटायर्ड कंसिडर किया जाएगा. Under Article 175(j), when the office of the Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court is vacant or the Chief Justice is unable to perform his functions, who appoints an acting Chief Justice? President. Article 175(k)(1) allows the President to appoint acting judges of the Federal Constitutional Court from which pool of persons? Judges of the Supreme Court are high courts qualified for appointment to the Federal Constitutional Court. The explanation to Article 175K clarifies that judge of a Supreme Court or High Court includes which category? Retired judges of the Supreme Court or High Courts. Under Article 175L1, what is the permanent seat of the Federal Constitutional Court? Islamabad. Under Article 175L2, the Federal Constitutional Court may sit at other places as appointed by whom with prior approval of the President. Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court. Under amended Article 175A, the Judicial Commission's marginal note now refers to which court in addition to others? Federal Constitutional Court. In the revised composition of the Judicial Commission under Article 175A2, which two Chief Justices are included? Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Article 175A2 now includes under paragraph 3, 1 next most senior judge of which courts as members? Federal Constitutional Court and Supreme Court. Under new paragraph 3A of Article 175A2, a judge of which courts can be jointly nominated as member for 2 years? Federal Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court. Under substituted paragraph 8 of Article 175A2, which person can be a member of the Commission? A person qualified to be a member of Parliament and is a technocrat. According to explanation 1 to Article 175A2, who acts as chairperson of the Judicial Commission? Senior amongst the Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Explanation 2 to Article 175A2 provides that if no judge can be jointly nominated under the paragraph 3A, how is the member under that paragraph selected? By majority of total membership of the Commission from nominees of both Chief Justices. Explanation 3 to Article 175A2 provides that if the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or a judge mentioned in paragraph 3 is considered for appointment as judge of the Federal Constitutional Court, who acts in his place in the Commission? Next, most senior judge of the relevant court. Explanation 4 to Article 175A2 deals with the case where the judge nominated under paragraph 3A is a judge of the Supreme Court and is to be appointed as judge of the Federal Constitutional Court. What must then occur? Another judge is nominated under paragraph 3A or explanation 2 to act as member in his place. A further proviso to Article 175A3 states that the President shall, on advice of the Prime Minister, appoint the first Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court from among whom? Judges of the Supreme Court. Another proviso to Article 175A3 provides that the first batch of judges of the Federal Constitutional Court shall be appointed by the President on advice of Prime Minister in consultation with whom? Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court. Article 175A4 is amended to clarify that the Judicial Commission deals with appointments of judges of which courts? Federal Constitutional Court, Supreme Court and Federal Shariat Court. Under the new class 20 of Article 175A, within what period must the Judicial Commission frame rules for purposes of classes 18 and 19 after commencement of the 27th Amendment Act 2025. 60 days. Article 176 is amended so that the word Pakistan is replaced with which words? Supreme Court. Article 177 and 178 are similarly amended to substitute Pakistan with which term? Supreme Court. Under Article 183(2), after amendment, the word Pakistan referring to the court is replaced with which words? Supreme Court. Which article of the Constitution is completely omitted by the 27th Amendment? Article 184. New Article 185(1) clarifies that the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction is subject to which article? Article 175(f). Under new Article 185(2)(a), an appeal lies to the Supreme Court where the High Court has reversed an acquittal and imposed which type of sentences? Death, transportation for life, or imprisonment for life. According to Article 185(3), in cases not falling under Class 2, an appeal to the Supreme Court lies only if what happens? Supreme Court grants leave to appeal. Which article dealing with advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is omitted by the 27th Amendment? Article 186. Under substituted Article 186(a), which courts are empowered to transfer cases between high courts? Federal Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court? Article 187 is amended so that the obligation to issue necessary directions to do complete justice in any matter now explicitly refers to which courts? Federal Constitutional Court and Supreme Court. Under substituted Article 189(1), decisions of the Federal Constitutional Court on questions of law are binding on which courts? All other courts in Pakistan including the Supreme Court. Under Article 189(2), decisions of the Supreme Court on questions of law are binding on all other courts except which court? Federal Constitutional Court. Article 190 is amended so that all executive and judicial authorities act in aid of the decisions of which courts? Federal Constitutional Court and Supreme Court. Under substituted Article 191, which courts are empowered to make rules regulating their own practice and procedure? Federal Constitutional Court and Supreme Court. Article 199(5) is amended to state that in that clause, references to the Supreme Court now include which court? Federal Constitutional Court. Under substituted Article 201, who may transfer a judge of a high court from one high court to another? President on recommendation of the Judicial Commission of Pakistan. Under Article 202, the seniority of a transferred High Court judge is reckoned from which date? Date of original appointment as a judge of a High Court. Under Article 204, if a judge does not accept a transfer under Article 200, he shall be deemed to have retired from office with pension based on his service. Article 202(a)(3), as substituted, provides that no bench of a high court other than which bench shall exercise jurisdiction under Article 199, Constitutional Bench. Article 204(1) is amended to confer contempt jurisdiction upon which additional court? Federal Constitutional Court. Article 206(2), as substituted, provides that a judge of a High Court or Supreme Court who does not accept appointment as judge of the Federal Constitutional Court shall be deemed to have what status? retired with pension based on his service. Article 208 is amended, applies rules for appointment of officers and servants of which court mutatus mutandis to the Federal Constitutional Court until its own rules are made. Supreme Court. Under amended Article 209(2), who are the first two members of the Supreme Judicial Council? Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Under amended Article 209(2), the Council also includes two most senior Chief Justices of which courts? High Courts. Under newly inserted Article 209(10), within how many days of commencement of the 27th Amendment Act 2025 must the Supreme Judicial Council frames rules for its procedures and conduct of business? 60 days. Article 210(1) is amended so that references regarding the capacity or conduct of a judge may be received by which courts? Federal Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court. Under amended Article 243(4), who appoints the Chief of the Army Staff concurrently the Chief of the Defense Forces? President on advice of the Prime Minister. The 27th Amendment abolishes the office of the Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee with effect from which date? 27 November 2025. Under new Clause 6 of Article 243, who recommends the Commander of the National Strategic Command to the Prime Minister? Chief of the Army Staff concurrently the Chief of Defense Forces. Under Article 243(6), from which service is the Commander of the National Strategic Command appointed? Pakistan Army. Under Article 243(7), an officer promoted to the rank of Field Marshal, Marshal of Air Force or Admiral of the Fleet shall retain what for life? Rank, privileges and remain in uniform. Under Article 243(8), Field Marshal, Marshal of the Air Force and Admiral of the Fleet, being national heroes, cannot be removed from office except in accordance with which article? Article 47. Article 243(9) applies to the provisions of which article is applicable to the President mutatus mutandis, to Field Marshal, Marshal of the Air Force and Admiral of the Fleet? Article 248. Under Article 243(10), upon completion of the term of his command, who determines the responsibilities and duties of a Field Marshal, Marshal of the Air Force or Admiral of the Fleet? Federal Government. Under Article 243(11), salaries, allowances and privileges of Field Marshal, Marshal of the Air Force and Admiral of the Fleet are determined by the President on whose advice? Prime Minister. Under amended Article 248(1), which phrase is inserted at the beginning to reinforce presidential immunity? Notwithstanding any judgment of any court. Under substituted Article 248(2), against whom may no criminal proceedings whatsoever be initiated or continued in any court? President for his life and a governor during his term of office. Under substituted Article 248(3), no process for arrest or imprisonment shall be issued from any court against whom? President for his life and a governor during his term of office. Under amended Article 261, The definition of Chief Justice is expanded to include the Chief Justice of which new court? Federal Constitutional Court. Under amended Article 261, the definition of judge is also expanded to include judges of which court? Federal Constitutional Court. According to the new definition inserted in Article 261, a technocrat is a person having at least how many years of education? 16 years. In addition to 16 years of education, how many years of experience in his field must a technocrat have under Article 261? 15 years. The third schedule is amended so that the heading of the oath now expressly includes which two top judicial offices first? Chief Justice of the Federal Constitutional Court and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Under the amended oath text in the third schedule, judges of which court are expressly named alongside judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts? Federal Constitutional Court. In the fourth schedule, Part 1, Entry 55 is amended to replace Supreme Court with which expression? Federal Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court. In the fifth schedule, the subheading, the Supreme Court, is replaced with which new subheading regarding judicial remuneration? The Federal Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court. The Statement of Objects and Reasons states that establishment of the Federal Constitutional Court is supported by which groups among others? Political parties, Pakistan Bar Council and various bar councils and associations. According to the Statement of Objects and Reasons, one expected benefit of the Federal Constitutional Court is reduction of pendency in the Supreme Court by shifting constitutional matters to the Federal Constitutional Court. When did the Senate of Pakistan first approve the Constitution 27th Amendment Bill 2025? 10 November 2025. On which date did the National Assembly pass the Constitution 27th Amendment Bill 2025? 12 November 2025. When did the Senate give its final approval to the Constitution 27th Amendment Bill 2025 after passing by the National Assembly? 13 November 2025. When did the President Asif Ali Zardari give his assent to the Constitution 27th Amendment Act 2025? 13 November 2025. Thank you for watching this video. Stay blessed.